Thank you very much. Actually, many hoped that the PM would visit Galana, but it was nowhere in the schedule. All the same, the preparations that we were doing in Galana were towards achieving what the contractors have supposed to have achieved so far. At the moment, the project is 50% complete. Infrastructure is on course. Production of maize, now 2,000 acres at a crop, and we are moving on very, very well.
Mm-hmm. Before I bring you in, Gilad, of course, this project is one of the key flagship, should I say, investments under the Jubilee administration. There's been a lot of concern about the implementation, especially when it comes to the yields per acre, which Parliament's Agriculture Committee had raised concerns about how the yields were not looking promising. Perhaps what has changed till now?
I agree with you. The production was quite an issue initially, but let me say it was the kind of reporting that was done that time, because the report that was led to Parliament that time was of an ongoing activity. Harvesting had just started, it had not been completed yet, and the team picked the figures that they got from that day. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the production was very good. Some varieties producing 39 bags, some producing 38 bags, some producing 35. And actually, we were very happy with what we realized in Galana, taking it that Galana has never produced maize over years. So we were very happy. Actually, that was a very big lesson for us, because out of the 13 varieties that we tried that time, we have now zeroed in on the best 4. And we are expecting fantastic yields.
Mm-hmm. All right, Gilad, you are an Israeli, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And
almost Kenyan, hopefully soon.
Almost Kenyan. And this visit, some say it was quite historic. First time for the Prime Minister to set foot in Africa, starting off in Uganda, then coming to Kenya. What does this visit mean for the Israeli business community?
It is a historic visit, Abi. It's, you know, I was a diplomat here 12 years ago. And we've never had, such, at least in my lifetime, I think the highest ranking last prime ministerial visit would have been Golda Meir in the early 60s.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu did come with the business community. You saw in the story Ashley did that there was serious, if you knew the faces, you know some of them are very big Israeli entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So Netanyahu came with serious commitment. We performed, you know, business and music.
Yeah.
So we performed last night at State House with Super Band, and you know, we sang. And after singing, my colleague Dana sang Jerusalem of Gold and had State House in tears. Mm-hmm. And Netanyahu himself very emotional. Yeah. And we were invited to meet the president and the prime minister at their table. Mm-hmm. And in the conversation, I said what I think is actually the summary of everything that has to do between the relationship between the startup nation, Israel, and the potential continent, whose capital, in my view, is Kenya. Kenya is the right place, and I said this to them last night, this is the place to introduce a new idea. So if you take agriculture, dairy, security, everything we've been talking about, and build a startup center, which is Kenyan Israeli, here, bring the Israeli venture capital thinking, bring the methods of the startup nation, if you haven't read the book, you know, bring all that here.
Yeah.
And implement it here together with Kenyans who will learn and teach, because it's a two-way street, yeah? And so I actually got a chance to propose that yesterday, kind of humbly throwing it into the conversation, and they were interested.
Of course, there's been issues around visa restrictions between Kenya and Israel, and this was one of the areas of discussion between the two heads of state. As you're making your living here in Kenya as an Israeli who hopes to be Kenyan.
I've applied, yes.
All right. So does the same apply back home? Because I know the visa restrictions have been quite sort of a stumbling block for Kenyan businessmen to start operations in Israel.
It's interesting, you know, the one thing I always say to people coming to Israel, and I also say to people coming to Kenya, forgive us our faults. So when a visitor is coming to Israel from, you know, to Kenya from Israel, I tell them, you know, pole pole, come slowly. Yeah, it's not the mentality you're used to. The same is true of Israel, okay? Israel is probably the most security-conscious country on the planet. We saw it in the visit here. The traffic, of course.
Lots of traffic.
Netanyahu joked about it and said he had no traffic. But, of course, he was the one it was closed for. But that mentality prevents and makes it difficult when you enter at the airport, and security, and obviously visa issues, yeah? I think that what we saw here with this visit, and by the way, earlier with President Kenyatta's visit to Israel, we're seeing a very interesting warming of ties.
All right.
One, between the two leaders themselves, and two, between the two peoples and countries, and it's very positive.
All right. Engineer, let's get back to the Galana project. What's new now that you're saying 50% complete? How soon will this project become commercially viable?
Even as we speak now, Galana is highly commercially viable, because even the gross margins that we did with
Some
the first
quarters still feel it's not a viable project.
Yes, those who have not visited Galana. And in any moment that we take a person who has not visited Galana to Galana, he comes out, we had a team last week, and another, when we were preparing for the PM visit, and the Kenyans now believe that Galana is the way to go for the entire country.
All right.
May I add to that, because obviously
Make it
I'm very
brief.
involved in Galana, you know, knowing about it. How could it not be viable? You've got the Israeli science working with the Kenyan willingness, you've got government support. There's no way, in my opinion, if managed properly, and it is, and now with the high levels, that Galana doesn't become that project, which would be modeled across Africa. Kibwezi was back in the day. Why not Galana?
All right. Engineer, many thanks for being with us this afternoon, as well as Gillard Milo.
Thank you.
I hope as we wrap up the show, you'll be able to sing for us, in case we have some time. Well,
isn't this a business show?
Oh, yes.
I'm supposed to be paid for singing. No. Yes, I'd be happy to.
Thanks, gentlemen, for coming and having this great discussion on what trade ties have emerged between the two countries.